Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mysterious Mr. Ryan and welcome to another Sims 4 house building video. On today's build video, the iPod. Now the iPod is a design that's actually been sitting in my to-do pile for about 3 or 4 weeks now. It's something I sketched out quite a while back before the actual swimming pools came into play, and I just never did anything with it, so I thought what better time at the present to actually go and work on this build. So to start off with then, to actually build the iPod, I build this centre area in the middle. Now this is kind of like a column and acts as the foundation for the entirety of the build. It sounds a bit strange at first, but the idea of this build is it actually all floats off of the central column. Now this is something a little bit different from what I usually do. My usual sort of builds, as you can tell from the Sans Souci, the Knight Citadel, the Guy Fawkes plotting area, all of this stuff, the Elemental Sisters, is all sort of in period, trying to keep everything in theme. But recently with Paranormal Plaza and the iPod which you're seeing now, I wanted to move into a more futuristic build, and I have to admit it's something I have actually quite enjoyed, so I might do a bit more futuristic modern builds as well. Now the idea of this build is actually designed to be, or at least look like, what it would look like if astronauts were to settle on another planet. They would have to set up their sort of base of pods and locations of living and research quarters, things like that. So that's what I wanted to try and build. Now the fountains here, I wanted to sort of represent water reserves, but in the end there's such a large amount of space underneath, I didn't actually know really what to do with it. So the space itself, although I've put down these fountains, if you were to want to build this yourself, there's no reason why you couldn't put whatever you want down there. I've just opted to do that because I like the idea of having the whole build flow off this one column, so I didn't want to have any more supports or anything that was going to look like structural integrity. I wanted everything to look like it's just simply floating. So just as we go around with the fountains, I wanted to actually put some sprinklers and some dancing emitters and stuff like that in there to liven it up a little bit. Also at night acts really nicely to lighten up the entire build. This area here especially with this block of red and blue really lights up well at night. I think I've got one of those in the glamour shots a bit later on. I've never really used the dome emitters and the double dome emitters, so I wanted to actually use them, which is why you see me actually place a lot of those on this specific build. I didn't want to go too mental with the fountains and sprinklers. I wanted to keep things simple and subtle. I did a lot on the Sans Souci and it was a nightmare in the end, working out what colours to try and get everything to match. So I wanted to go with a simplistic build this time. Now as we move around here, you can see not only is the fountains taking me a little bit of time to do, I'm now working on this sort of red border, and I will be the first to admit that this was one of the longest and most painful things I've done on The Sims 4 for quite a while. The last time I did something that painful to actually build was the Knight Citadel. This build itself wasn't painful, it was the cranulation around the edge, which is pretty much very similar to what I'm doing here, which is this border around the fountains with these triangles. Unfortunately there's no way to speed it up, it's exactly as painful as it looks, so if you want to go for this effect as well, unfortunately you are going to have to put in the hours, but I think overall the effect it gives is worthwhile. So as we move upstairs, we're actually going to start working on the upper pods. Now this is the actual going to be the living areas, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the kitchen, etc. So the actual centre is sort of a reception area. As we move out, the idea is to have the 2 pods on the left and right as you look at the building to be the main bathrooms that lead on to separate bedrooms, and these are going to be double bedrooms. The idea is to have this whole house is designed for 4 people to live in. You could easily fit more, but the only thing is I haven't put more beds in there, so if you were to want to have children and start a family in here, you could easily convert one of the bedrooms into a children's bedroom by selling the items and replacing some of the furniture. The idea of this pod system, however, is all the colour schemes is uniform throughout. The idea is that any pod could be converted to do anything. The only thing that matters is the shapes and sizes, so certain pods obviously are more practical than others. So because this is a space theme, we're going to need some power for it, so I wanted to stick with the theme, and this is what these sort of panels I'm building out the sides actually represent. These will actually be, I like to think these look like solar arrays. This was the best I could do in The Sims 4. There are no actual solar arrays to place down, so I improvised. So I was quite pleased with how these turned out, however. So placing down the roofs and then using the adjustment tool to end up with a curve effect. I do change the roof pattern a bit later and I'll get to that. I'm just wallpapering the outside and the insides of all the pods now, so I opt for a white squared sort of pod for the outside and inside, and the actual gullies and pathways between them I opted for a red theme, and this carries over onto the inside as well. I want to keep everything simplistic, and I didn't want to use too many fancy colours. I haven't actually changed the wallpaper on the inside either. I wanted to keep it all simplistic to look like it'd just been set up for practicality and functionality rather than actual design and aesthetics. So just in place down in these roofs now, these look kind of like supports, that's why I use them. Again, if you were to want to do this yourself or build this yourself, there's no reason why you have to keep them. I like how they look, but that's why I've included them, but you may not. Your mileage may vary, so obviously adjust accordingly. So just as we go around, as you can see, I'm just using the default texture for all of these now, but as you can see, I'm just going to go around and change them all in a little bit to match the lower downstairs roofs. I like that metal grating. It does make it look quite industrial, as you can see, and I hope you agree that it does make it look quite good. So as we move around then, I'm just working on the roofs for the upper story. So I actually load the debug menu now to actually get a specific type of carpet which looks like the roofs. So it's a metal grate. I use that on the transition paths, but then on the main roofs themselves, I wanted to opt for a sort of a blended effect to make it look like it blends in with the surroundings. So I put down some grass and then use the actual swimming pool tiles as kind of like a border. And I actually think the blue on the green contrast is really, really nice. It's one of my more favourite roofs I've done. As we move around, as you can see, I'm using the triangles to create the nice borders around the edge, and just do that for all of the roofs. And then it's going to be a case of actually putting in some windows and lighting these areas. So that's going to be the next important steps, I believe. So then, just as I finish off the roofs, it's time to actually start doing the windows themselves. So for the windows, I opted for these circular windows. I use these for the transitions only. I used a slightly different one for the pods. I think these give a subtle amount of light letting it in, but at the same time create enough light to make it look like a transition pathway. For the actual pods, I use these double windows that look very industrial but also quite futuristic. I was going to use floor to ceiling windows, but I've used them on Paranormal Plaza, and on testing I didn't think they looked very good, so I thought this was more in line with the door I've used downstairs, and also it allowed me to use these little small windows on the areas where I had roofs and stuff in place, which made the full size windows problematic. So just placing down some floor. Now the idea of this stairway in the centre is I wanted to have a cross pattern. I'm not entirely sure why, but I just quite liked the way it looked. So I placed down just some railings now, and it's time to actually start working on the inside carpet. So for all the transition pods, I use the red floor, and for the main areas I use the tiled white floor. I had to open out some of these areas, unfortunately, due to the way the doors work in this, and they have to have a certain gap between them. It wouldn't allow me to place the doors in a one block succession of one another, so I do delete a couple of the walls. I place down an archway for the centre one and then move on downstairs to start the lighting. So these lights I used throughout the entire build. I thought they looked the most futuristic given the current packs that are available in The Sims 4. I didn't want to use any custom content, although I was very tempted at one point. I did find some custom content I was going to use. The reason for it is I thought, well, I want this to be able to be downloaded and played by anyone, so I want to try and stick with all my builds as vanilla as possible, unless of course obviously it's to do with actual official Sims 4 expansions. So the solar rays I just wanted to light up so at night they look a bit better, as you can see in a quick night shot there. They do light up quite nicely. So now it's time to actually start working on the bedroom. So I opted for a futuristic looking bed, some bedside cabinets and a bedside table. Placed down a little bit of greenery in the form of a plant, a mirror, and also just looking for an ornament to place in the corner. I placed down a couple of plants on top of the dresser, just to add a little bit of greenery. I do actually go back and place a mat in the inside shortly when I do the other bedroom in a moment, but that for now is missing. As we move into the bathroom, I place down 2 showers, a couple of towels on each side, and then place down a couple of sinks and also some toilets along with the mirrors above the sinks. I liked this medicine cabinet style mirror I was using. I think it looked and fitted with the theme really well, although it was something I only actually realised was in the game while building this. I was looking for something totally different and bumped into that item, so I'm quite pleased that I managed to spot that. So as we start off then, I've placed down a couple of showers and a couple of towel rails. So this bedroom and bathroom, I want to stick with a bit more of a red theme. So you actually see me, I placed some red towels, some red medicine cabinets, and now I go around and change the colours of some of the items. So for the bedroom here, I placed down a red mirror and a slightly different bed. The cabinets and chest of drawers are the same style, it's just in a red theme. The ornament is the same, and also the plants I did opt for pretty much a mirror image. The carpet itself, I just opted for a little matte, just in a neutral grey. I didn't want to go with a colour because I thought it might overpower the room. As we move on to the kitchen now, I wanted to sit with a grey and light sort of sky blue theme with this one. So I placed down some cabinets, and just as we move around some cupboards above, I placed down a an oven to match the fridge and a sink, couldn't get my words out there. I placed down a vent, and as we moved down to place a table for the Sims to sit at. Not a very big kitchen, but I wanted to incorporate the living space in there. Now I used the scale tool to expand the TV and actually enlarge it by one size to give a huge TV effect, along with a couple of ornaments, a table in the centre, and I opted for this sort of curved bank of sofas effect. I quite like how it looks, but again your mileage may vary. I've left it like this for the official download, but again, if you were to want to make changes or do something a bit different in yours, you're more than welcome to scale it back down, remove stuff, rearrange furniture. I'm happy for you to do whatever. Now, as you can see, I've just selected the kitchen item, so you're probably wondering what the purpose of this room is. Now, considering this will be colonising of another planet, we need to have a place where you can actually work on some greenery and a lab to analyse the plants that are growing and how they're growing, and that's what this is. So, place down a few plants on the work surfaces, just a nice little place for Sims to come really. It's kind of like it almost acts like a Zen garden, so to speak. Want to place down a couple of places Sims could actually play with, prune, and practice cutting plants, so that's what that is, and a couple of decorative items as well. So here we need a place for the Sims to unwind, so a couple of game mats, a nice bookcase only to be filled with light reading, nothing scientific in there, a couple of sofas to sit at while you're watching your friend's game and while you're reading, and a couple of desks where you can just sit down and play on the computer with no real worries. As we move around then, that pretty much concludes the inside of the build. Now it's just a case of just going around and doing some aesthetics. So just while I'm doing that, the idea of this build, as I said earlier, is to be kind of like the colonisation of another planet. Now I've opted to use these rose bushes around the border. I think it looks quite good like this. I thought it looked a bit sort of wrong without them. Again though, your mileage may vary. There's no reason why you have to use these, you could delete them. There is still quite a large amount of space in this build, so there is a lot of stuff you can actually play with yourself. So if you're not a master builder, I like to think that this is pretty good and ready to go for most users. But if you are quite talented at building, you would like to use this space a bit better than I have, there's no reason why you can't, but I would like the idea it was quite empty, a bit more barren. Yeah, as we just come around here, that pretty much concludes the iPod build now. So I'm going to move into some glamour shots now so you can get a little bit of a look of the build itself. So the build itself, in the end, to give you a bit of background, took about 3 days of actual planning in the game. This has been something that's sketched up for about 3 weeks now, so I hope you have enjoyed it. If you do want to download this, I did mention it earlier, this is available for download in the gallery on The Sims 4. You can find me at Mysterious Mr. Ryan. If you want to stay up to date with me, you can follow me on Twitter, links in the description down below at Ryan Lurie. And if you do want to stay up to date with my videos and like what you've seen here, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. And through the power of technology, YouTube will automatically send you a notification every time I upload a new exciting video for you. But for now, my name is Mysterious Mr. Ryan, this has been the iPod build, and I'm out. I'll see you later and take care.